So against my better judgment, we're about to dive into a part of this project that I said I would never ever do. And that is to remove the body from the frame. So this was something I'd hoped to avoid. It's something that I thought I had a workaround or multiple workarounds for. Ultimately, I've been convinced of the fact that it's just going to be better. So let me just explain kind of where we're at, some of my thought process here, and why we're going to move forward with this direction. When I removed the belly pan from this trailer, I discovered all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of mold, there's a lot of dirty insulation, mouse feces, all kinds of fun stuff to have landing on your head. But I kind of expected all that. What I didn't expect was that the frame was actually rotten in a couple spots. Near the back passenger corner was pretty bad. The bottom third of the frame rail was rusted. The support that went across the back that held up the gray tank was nearly gone in the middle. It was pretty clear it had been taken on water for a while, but I kind of committed to, okay, I can cut that part out. It's not going to be fun, but I can cut it out. I can weld in a new section and we can move forward. As I continued digging into it, I discovered that near one of the leaf spring mounts further up on the passenger side, there were also some holes in the frame. So this presented a little bit more of a challenge because now we're removing the axles. We're welding in a rather large section of the bottom third or half of the frame to really be sure that this is good. Or I could plate around it and leave the rust in there, or just cut it out and plate around it, but none of those are great options. In talking with a friend of mine, he said, do you really want to go through all this and not just replace the frame and know that what you have is solid? So I kind of hemmed and hawed on that for a while. Ultimately, I decided he was right, but what I figured out that I could do is keep the floor, the wood floor, attached to the body, lift it up, take the frame out from underneath, rebuild that, and then go back. And that was where I was at until recently. I saw a video I need to find, and I'll try to link to it if I can find it, but I saw a video of a gentleman that basically said, if you're restoring one of these, you really need to take it up off the floor, take the body off the floor, because otherwise you don't know what all's hiding. And with some more mulling, I think he's right. The way these are built is there's a metal frame on the bottom, and with a lot of trailers there'd be that, and there would be metal cross supports that go across as floor joists, basically, to use like a house framing term. The way it works on this is they have 2x2s or 2x4s on flat that run across that metal frame, and then on top of that is 5/8 plywood, and on top of that sits the walls. And so those metal frame rails run inside the wheel well, so they're not the full width, and so those 2x4s hold the part that overhangs. And then on either side there's wooden brackets that are kind of made to follow the contour of like the side of the trailer under here. They kind of tie it all together. Problem is they don't tie it together super well. It's wood sitting in steel, exposed the elements at the bottom, and so a number of those are rotted. And a lot of that plywood work goes underneath the walls. There's 3 or 4 individual spots that are all rotten. So I'd kind of convinced myself that I could cut this out, wiggle the pieces out, patch in new pieces. But then I got to thinking, do I really want to do that, or do I just want to take the effort to go a little further, lift this body up, bring the whole frame and floor out, and just start fresh on that part? And so ultimately, that's what I decided. When I started this project, I was inspired by Andy Rawls, who has a great YouTube channel, primarily carpentry, but he has a multi-year series restoring an Argosy travel trailer, and he went through the same thing. He built these awesome wooden gantry things. He lifted the whole frame up, and I consider doing that. I don't have a very flat area here, and so that's going to be hard. I also don't have any holes in the roof right now. Ever since I put the new sheet on, I have not figured out quite where I want to put those holes yet, so I hesitate to do it from the top. And so in my mind, that kind of made this impossible, until I stumbled upon this video of this gentleman who kind of convinced me to do this, where what he did was he braced the inside, he X-braced it and braced across the floor so the dimensions wouldn't change. And he lifted it up and placed it on something like this, stacks of cinder blocks. And so You can lift it up off the floor from the inside until you can get a piece of wood clear through from one side all the way to the other, rest it on these cinder blocks, and remove the frame. So that's the plan. I'm not feeling super confident. I've never built a trailer frame before. My welding's been getting better and better, and I'm pretty confident that I can build this thing. But it's going to be quite a process because we have to bend frame rails into this tongue section by making pie cuts and bending them. We have to weld new axle mounts onto it, and I'm going to use some modern leaf springs and modern mounts so that they're available. And then we have to paint it. We have to mount the old axles onto it or replace with modern axles. I'm leaning towards old, but that could change. And then instead of using wood 2x to go across underneath the floor, I'm leaning toward replacing them with metal 1.5 inch square tubing. And then where they overhang the sides, there would be a metal curved piece that would actually be welded to the frame that would support that. And so it would, I think, much better, it would be a much better tie-in of the studs to the trailer frame, and I think everything would be a lot stronger. And so ultimately we're not just replacing what's here, but we're making it better, and I think that's more in the line of what I want to do here. So yeah, that's how I got to this decision. This has been probably 4 to 6 months of me thinking over this while completing small tasks, and just kind of mulling it over the winter. But I think this is the route we're going to go. So in order to do that, we have to do a number of things. And the first, which I've already started, is to remove all these curved trims. You can see this gold stripe here along the front. I've removed the lowest level of trim. We're going to take that off, and we're just going to start disassembling this. There's a lot of self-tapping screws. There's a lot of little T-shaped nails that hold these in. And because they lap under the rest of the wall, it's tricky. You got to peel the wall out. You got to try to pull these out. And then of course I have to label them all and hope that we can get them back together. So not what I planned on doing, not what I really want to do, if we're going to be honest, but I think it's the right thing to do at this point. So I'm just going to keep moving forward here. I'm going to get this as prepped as I can, and then I'm going to get my metal ordered and all my suspension parts ordered, and then we're going to pull the trigger and go. So we'll see what happens. Let's see if it works. All right, so I think I've actually already changed my mind here. Originally I thought I was going to have to remove all of these round pieces here, and I started taking this trim off, and I took out some of these little metal steel T-staples that are in here. And I started looking. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. It's kind of hard to tell, but this piece of aluminum is actually one piece over this frame rail. So in other words, this curved piece and this curved piece are the same. There's almost no way for me to get that off with this metal on top still here. So what I'm thinking is probably going to be a better pathway here is just to remove this metal, take this trim off, and you can actually see, maybe you can see there's light up in there through into the inside. And so by doing that, I think that I will have the body free, at least on the sheet metal side of things. And then let's take a look inside, and I'll show you kind of what we're looking at there. All right, so now you can see here through the light coming through the outside. See if I can get the phone up in here. You can see the gravel under there. And so this subfloor is attached to the frame. And so I think as long as I get this sheet metal detached from the wood, that's probably all I have to do. And then I could actually deal with all those other parts later. So as I look around, at the rest of this, again, it's a mess, my apologies, but essentially we've got screws like this one right here, and there's quite a few of these that tie the body into the frame. There's also a strip of wood that runs under here, and so once we get the sheet metal detached, and then once we take out all those screws all the way around, in theory this whole thing will come up. So that's going to be the goal. I'm going to head back outside, start taking them off, and then these screws are going to be the last part, because we have to brace in here, and basically like we're going to do like X braces like across the back, across the floor, and then the same up front, and that will keep all these walls where they need to be when we lift. So what I'm seeing here as I take these screws out is kind of confirming my fear. A lot of these heads are completely rusted, which I guess I noticed, but I chose to ignore. And I can see a gap in between the metal here where there's just completely rotten wood. And so that's holding this entire thing basically. There's no metal really holding all these walls up. It's all wood. And so I think this is the right choice, because on this run alone, there's probably 10 or 12 screws that will not come out with the drill because they're so rusted. So I'm gonna have to cut them off. Today's the day. We are ready to lift this body off the frame. The goal here is going to be to brace this whole thing. So we're going to do that now. My wife Laura is going to help me. And then from there, we're going to take all the screws out along the bottoms of the wall and see if we can lift this thing up. Now that the bracing's in, the next step is to go along and remove all the screws along the bottom of the wall. It's tough to film because of all the bracing that's in here now. So I'm gonna go around, there's probably about every 8 to 10 inches, there's a square drive screw. I'm gonna take all these out, and then I'm coming along with a pry bar and just lifting up on the wall to make sure it's loose. Quite a few of these are really rusted, and so I'm having to take them out with a grinder. Big long screw. This is what is holding the walls down to the wooden frame underneath. It's the next day. I've been thinking about what I started last night, kind of all day today. This whole thing didn't want to lift last night. I've got these scissor stabilizing jacks that eventually are going to be under, but I'm using them to help me lift here. And they're rated for 5,000 pounds each. I put a decent amount of oomph on them, just kind of pulling up, and it just didn't budge. So I thought, well, maybe there's screws from the bottom. I don't know. But I've tried a couple different things to try to get these screws out. Wherever I could, I took them out with a drill. Where I couldn't, I went in with a grinder, and I kind of just dug down in there and tried to get the head of the screw off. And I was able to do that. It was a bit of a mess, kind of dug into the aluminum. The aluminum clogs up these cutting discs really bad. But I got the heads off, but the walls still didn't really feel like they got loose. So I tried last night going under with a Sawzall, and just very carefully going under there and keeping it at a very shallow angle so it wouldn't pierce through the outside. Super risky move. I really didn't want to do it. I just couldn't think of what else to do. It didn't seem like any of that worked. So I was thinking today while I was at work, I wonder if a metal blade on an oscillating multi-tool type saw would do the trick. So I dug through my blades and I found a couple that were bimetal blades. And just to test, before I hopped on camera here, I did a couple sections around the front to see if I could feel any nails or anything in there. I didn't feel anything. So then I went over to some screws that I cut the heads off of. My thinking was I'd be able to just lift up and they would lift. But I thought, well, maybe I should see if I can cut through the screw at the floor level. So that's what I did. And let me show you what it looks like now. If I grab this wall, it actually moves. So I think that's the ticket here. I'm gonna keep going. I know there's at least one screw I couldn't get. I'm gonna see if I can get it with this, and then we'll try lifting again. Went all the way around, did that, cut around all the edges, and that seemed to free up all the walls. I found 3 or 4 screws that I did not know were even there. and there were probably 8 or 10 that I had cut the heads off of, but it really didn't seem to loosen the wall because it was still kind of stuck in the aluminum. So I'm gonna try lifting this. I'm gonna just put a little bit of pressure on some of the jacks and just see what it does. Just to kind of show you guys, you can see it's up off the ground. You can see all that rotten plywood, rotten, all kinds of stuff in there. Got the front is up quite a ways. More rotten wood under there, more under there. There's more rotten than not. We have liftoff. That went really well. I was really nervous about that. It is completely up on the 4x4s now. The jacks are still holding it up, but I've got everything shimmed, blocked up. It's about 1.5-inch-ish up off of the deck. And so I think that'll be enough to get the trailer out from under. If it's not, I'll have to lift it some more, but I hope that it is because it's gonna be awkward to lift it more. But worst case, I'll probably deflate the tires to get it out of there. So I'm gonna go in now and just attach some of these blocks together and cut off a couple of the pipes that are sticking up through the floor, get all the tools out so that we can actually pull this thing out. Okay, that worked. That's awesome. I thought that was going to be a big deal, and it really wasn't. Just rolled it right out. So we can kind of see what we're dealing with a little bit better here now. Yeah, you can see all this rot right here, which we know about, but that's pretty bad there. There's quite a bit of frame rust under here. Over there, it's real bad. There's quite a bit down here even. Not too bad on the wood till we get to the back here. That's terrible. And then this is just completely gone. And the walls are on top of this, so this is really impossible to fix. And you can see, looking down through there, if it'll focus, that's all rusted metal underneath there, the frame. Come up under. Just really, really rotten. All right, the trailer made it in one piece to the shop here that I'm gonna be building the new frame in. And I went and I picked up all the metal for it. I didn't show any of that just because I wanted to be really focused on making sure this thing was going down the road in one piece. But thankfully, no drama, made it here, no problem. So before we can actually start building the new frame, I need to get this wooden top off of it. But to do that, I need to come through and remove the last few pieces of these curved sheet metal. Carefully, they're all kind of tacked on with steel nails that are little T-shaped nails that really don't want to come out. So I'm going to carefully get all them off, make a note of where they go. I'm going to take some good measurements on the top of this, and then I'm also going to go around and mark the frame with like where the front of this starts, where the back of it ends, where the wheel wells are, things like that. So as I start rebuilding this, I put them all back in the right place. I'm also going to do the best I can to try to save the top of this in one piece. This is currently bolted down to the frame with a bunch of big carriage bolts. I could remove them, and I may still do that, but I'm hoping I can just take a hole saw and drill around them and then maybe just flip this thing off and set it to the side. And that'll allow me to have it for measurement purposes and for reference. But just in case that doesn't go well, we'll get some good solid measurements first so we have that. Let's get started. Well, there we have it. That was a bit of a fight. Ended up just being easier to cut it in half to wrestle it over. I was hoping to keep it in one piece just in case I forgot to get a measurement or anything, but we're just gonna keep it like that for now until this new frame's built, just to make sure we have it for reference. So it's actually a pretty good look here now. You can see what we're working with. It's not, doesn't look bad at first glance, but when you start getting into spots like this, you can see why we're doing this. This whole bottom part of this is just gone. This is the bottom back passenger. And really this whole bottom third or half is just shot, and it follows all the way up to where our suspension is. And so that's where it starts getting really risky. And then if you come up here beyond where we could see before without going under, directly above this leaf spring mount, see these holes here? Pretty significant, and quite a bit of rust continuing out. So that was what ultimately made this decision for me. And you can just see again from here like how rotten that back is. So the next step is to get this in the garage, and we're gonna do our best to get it sitting flat so it's not twisted or anything. I think you can probably see right now it's somewhat twisted back there. Back left sitting higher than the back right, or sitting lower rather. But we'll get it all leveled out, and then we'll start building our new one on top. I also discovered this too. This front rail is bent pretty far forward. Not sure if that was done at the factory or what. Maybe it was just a little off, but we're just gonna use this as a template for the new one. So let's get this thing inside. Holy cow, that was crazy. That went a lot better than I expected. I'm so glad that it's out, it made it. And so the next couple of videos are gonna be digging into actually building this new frame. So I would be honored if you guys would subscribe and stick around and hang out for these other videos. It's gonna get crazy here.